Good evening, everyone. How are we all doing tonight? Awesome, because as I'm sure you are all aware, the bracket for March Madness has now been released, right? So that's why we're all in good spirits. No, I hope you're all here tonight to celebrate an incredible evening of creativity and bravery and discovery and just an amazing night of student-created music. My name is David Getz. I'm the director of the Composers Guild. This is the group that is kind of putting on this evening, this performance. As you probably saw or have heard, this is our 10th anniversary celebration of In Their Own Right, which is the event you're about to see. 10 years ago, we decided to not only invest in our students' creativity and teach them how to write music, but we wanted to give them an experience where they could put that music in front of real humans, and they would play that music from this concert stage, and they could have an experience that is usually only reserved for, prospective professional composers. We wanted them to have that experience at this age and make it a formative experience for them going forward. And we've only seen that that has been the case over these past 10 years. And so I am thrilled tonight to invite you here for our 10th anniversary celebration. What you're about to see, you're going to hear 8 pieces of music that until tonight did not exist on planet Earth. And that's a special thing. And the fact that we are all in this room going to share that experience together is what makes composition and performance of those compositions so unique. A few things just to note before we get started. For the past 9 years that we've done these events, we've hired college musicians from either Illinois Wesleyan or Illinois State to come be our performers. But since this is our 10th anniversary, we decided to pull out all the stops, and you're going to hear 3 seasoned professionals in the music industry perform tonight. So you're in for a treat there. Because this is also an anniversary celebration, we're going to do a few things that aren't exactly music related. As you can kind of see over here on stage left, we've kind of made a little interview studio, and we're going to be hearing from a few people throughout the evening as we reflect kind of on the last 10 years of this program and what it has done. So I believe that was the last of my announcements. I want to invite all of you to stick around after the show. We have coffee provided by Eli's Coffee Shop and cookies. We would invite you all to stay for a brief reception. As you walked in, you probably saw there were tables set out for each composer. We would love for you just to go around, see their work. All the music that they've written is on that table, and we'd love for you to strike up a conversation about their creative process or what you heard tonight and engage them in that way. So please stick around for a coffee and a treat. All right, and with that, we're going to now turn to our first interview. We're going to open the night just with a quick introduction. Tonight's ensemble is going to be directed by Dr. Mario Pelusi, and he is no stranger to In Their Own Right. He actually was the director of the ensembles for the first 5 shows that we did. And he's also not a stranger to myself, as I was under his direction when he was the director of the School of Music at Illinois Wesleyan during my time there between 2008 and 2012. So when I invited him to come back and conduct the 10th anniversary celebration, he was very eager to do so, and we're very excited to have him back. So please welcome to the interview stage, Dr. Mario Pelusi. You're the guest of honor. So in years past, Dr. Pelusi, you were usually the one that was interrogating me as the student. So it's my privilege tonight to talk to you about some parts of this program. What the audience should know, first off, is you are actually the inspiration behind this whole event. In 2006, I attended Dr. Pelusi's Summer Composition Institute, which he directs at Illinois Wesleyan in the summer for prospective students who are interested in composing. And I really stole your idea of that whole week where we began writing a piece on Monday, we premiered it on Friday, and I said, why not take that whole week and boil it down to about one afternoon? And that's what we basically have done. So today, the students rehearsed their pieces with the performers, and then we're about to perform them. So could you share with the audience, though, how you got started with that Composition Institute and how that came to be?
Well, you can all blame me now because I'm the catalyst for all this. Now, first I'd like to say I'm so proud of Mr. Getz. I remember him as a student, very, very carefully, and I say that deliberately because he was what we called a triple threat, composer, violinist, and pianist, and I believe you played a piano concerto for the concerto aria competition.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant young man, and I'm so just impressed by what he's done with this program. I don't know of another high school, frankly, in the entire country that runs a program like this, and I know that the district really appreciates that and supports David in this enterprise. And what a thrill for students. You asked me how I got that program started at Wesleyan. Well, I ran it I was director of the School of Music there for 20 years, and back in 2007, I believe it was, I started this program, and I directed it for, I think, 14 or 15 years. And I wanted to create a program that I would have loved to have attended when I was in high school. I went to a public high school in California, didn't have a very good music program, and I thought, well, why don't I create this program that would be exactly what I would have wanted when I was that age. And so that was the initial catalyst for it. So I developed the curriculum to run over a week's period of time, and it was intended to introduce young people, regardless of their backgrounds in composition, to the compositional process. I taught courses on film music and counterpoint, orchestration, et cetera, et cetera. And the program culminated with what you're going to be seeing here tonight. It was premieres by every student who attended the program. Premieres of compositions written for 3 instruments, and I always favored a wind instrument, a string instrument, and the piano. And at the height of the program, I actually had, I think, 36 student attendees. And I remember we always recorded all the pieces on a single day on the last day of the program. And it was a marathon. I was exhausted by the end of it. But it ran very smoothly, and to this day, I get feedback from students, and each group formed its own Facebook group, so they stay in touch with one another, and they send me pictures, and they tell me what they're doing. And now I have students in that program who are actually completing doctoral degrees in composition. I've had plenty of students at the collegiate level who've gone on to do that, but not the high school students. So I've been at it a long time, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And David, of course, was in that program and did a marvelous job, and that kind of started it all, I think.
And yeah, I mean, when you used the phrase, I wanted to create something that I would have liked in high school, I remember actually thinking that exact thought when I started the Composers Guild, because I was thinking, I went to your institute, I had such an amazing experience, and I was like, I want to give, that's something I want to give to my students. And so it's funny that we have that same thought. You are also a prolific composer yourself. Could you talk just a little bit about the music you've written and where it has gone in the world?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I went to public high school. And in those days, the music programs weren't terribly good there, but I stuck it out. I couldn't wait to get out of high school, frankly. Sorry, high school. But I wanted to be around other people who were really into music. And at that time, it was the height of the Vietnam War, and everybody was getting drafted. So to stay out of to avoid getting drafted, the government still issued student deferments. Yeah, so if you had a student deferment, you had to go to college. Had to go. I wanted to go. So, but all the major schools of music and all the big universities were filled with people. They weren't taking any more. So I went to a local community college, which, as it turned out, was a very fortuitous thing for me to do, because at that school, they had a really good jazz program, one of the best in the state, and I was really into jazz. And there were 2 professors there, both of whom had graduated from the University of Southern California. And after I was there for a year, they encouraged me to transfer to USC, which I did. And that started a whole new trajectory for me. I absolutely fell in love with music. I couldn't get enough of it. I was in the library, in the music building, 24/7 it seemed, studying conducting, theory, composition, getting all my student performers together. No internet, no cell phone. So getting a bunch of musicians together was a challenge. We had to rely on magnetic tape voice message machines. And so you were lucky if you got the person at home. Otherwise, you had to wait for the person to call you back, and you had to be at home to get that call. Anyway, it developed a lot of entrepreneurs in those days. But I had a wonderful experience at USC and started writing a lot of concert music. I really got devoted to concert music. But I still played jazz and still love jazz and still write jazz today. When I was getting ready to go on to to a graduate school because I wanted to teach at the collegiate level, one of my teachers had been to Princeton and Yale. He encouraged me to apply to those schools. And just about the time I was ready to send in my applications, USC Composition Department offered me a teaching scholarship, teaching position, if I stayed for a master's degree. So I stayed there for a Master of Music degree. And then I went to Princeton for another master's degree in fine arts degree, they called it, and the PhD. And that was, again, another fortuitous event for me because I studied with world-famous composers and had one of the best music libraries in the world. Just spent so much time there learning so much. And then from there, I started to launch my teaching career. And since that time, I've taught at 6 different universities and colleges throughout the country, including Ohio and Oregon, New Jersey. I came here 24 years ago, maybe now, to be director of the School of Music at Illinois Wesleyan. And I retired from there a couple years ago. And before I retired, I started an online teaching business because, again, I love to give back to younger people. So I'm not very savvy when it comes to developing websites, but I learned. I highly recommend, by the way, Wix.com. Wix is a great company based in Israel. They have a great platform for developing websites. I designed my own website. They have great tech support. And now I teach online students throughout the world, literally throughout the world, using Zoom or Skype. I have students in the UK. I have a student in Hong Kong. One of my students, believe it or not, is a Hungarian diplomat. He's in his late 40s, and he's a fantastic composer. So, and I have a band director in Texas. And so I just love teaching all these people because they each come to music with the love of music. They just want some guidance, but they're into all different types of music. And because of my background, fortunately, I can teach all these different subjects. So in the course of a week, I might teach one student what's called species counterpoint. Another student might be writing an orchestral piece, so we're talking about composition and orchestration. Another student's really into film music, and so we talk about film scores, and we do all kinds of things and learn new software programs. It's just a thrill for me. It's very exciting, so I love doing that. So that's what I'm doing now. But I was telling somebody else earlier that in the last 4 years, I've written more music than I did in the previous 10. So you get out of administration and you can do things like that. So I'm thrilled. I write music every day, which is a love, and I write a lot of jazz piano pieces as well as concert pieces. My most recent concert piece is a very ambitious piece, actually, for a very large wind ensemble. So I'm almost finished with that piece. So I'm doing all those things, and I've never regretted a moment after all these years. You know, it's very hard, generally speaking, to be an artist in any field of art, especially in the U.S. But, you know, artists I've found over time are perhaps the most entrepreneurial of all people. You know, they will figure it out. If there's a way to do something, they will figure it out. They're very talented people, and they can make a life for themselves, and they have a passion that surmounts anything. And then if they're fortunate and are so inclined, they can then pass along all those experiences to the younger generation. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. One thing I also do every year is I'm a judge for the composition contest at the Illinois Music Educators Association contest. I've been doing that for 12 years, and I get to see I get hundreds of scores from high school students from all over the country, all over the state, and in both the keyboard category and the large instrumental category. So I'm kind of up on what the younger generation is writing, which is fun for me to see.
Which basically makes you the perfect candidate for coming in and working with our students today, which has been phenomenal.
Well, I'm honored to be
You've already worked with them for a couple with I think these people probably want to hear some music. So with what they're about to hear, you're going to walk over to the other side of the stage, and you're going to work with three outstanding artists in the field: Dr. John Orff on piano, Dr. David Gresham on clarinet, and Dr. Cora Swenson-Lee on cello. We're going to open the show with a set of 4 pieces. You can follow on in your program to see which piece we are doing. After each piece, Dr. Pelusi will gesture towards the audience, and the composer of that piece is in this room, will stand up and be recognized with applause. So could we please welcome our musicians to the stage and kick off 2023, our 10th anniversary of In Their Own Right.
So before we get underway, I'd just like to say that we spent this afternoon rehearsing each piece, about a half an hour on each piece, and that's a very instructive process because we had an opportunity to talk to each composer about the pieces. They asked questions, we gave feedback on the pieces, and I think that was a very good learning experience for them. And I'm sure they'll take all of what they've learned and apply it for the next round of composing. lots of paper. Don't worry, it'll be recycled. Oh, that reminds me, Mr. Getz, I'd like to give you my copies of the scores so you can return them to the students so they can see what I've written on them. Absolutely. And it goes for all of you too, if you'd like to do that.
Well, we have just heard some fantastic pieces from Sean, Ronan, I have to just make sure I'm getting this right. That was Kevin and Brett, and we'll have another set here coming shortly. But I would like to welcome another special guest up here to the floral design stage. I forgot to plug our sponsor at the beginning. So would Mr. Kyle Gillis please make his way up front? Welcome, Kyle Gillis. All right, Kyle, as it says in the program, you are our current student here at Morton High School, and this is actually Kyle's 5th in their own right, which we'll get to eventually, Kyle. But I wanted to talk to you as our 10th anniversary to talk to one current student, and we'll hear in a little bit from a former student. But Kyle, could you share with the audience kind of how you got involved with just composing music? How did this start happening for you?
Yeah, so I like to play around on the piano at home, and I would just, play what I thought sounded good, and when I found something that sounded good, I would just write it down on some blank staff paper. And then one day, my horn teacher taught me about a notation program, which was MuseScore. And from there, I began to write bigger pieces with like concert bands and all sorts of different instrumentation. And then I just grew a love from composing for them.
Well, that leads into my next question, Kyle, of how did you get involved in Composers Guild then when you were here at Morton High School?
Yeah, so I actually talked to my band director at the junior high when I was in 7th grade about how I was interested in composing. And I asked if we could play a concert band piece that I wrote. And we actually did sight read it in the class the next day. It did not go very well since I had no instruction on how to actually compose. And she recommended that I join the Composers Guild, and I learned a lot about composing from there.
One of the things that's at least cool on my end is I remember how you composed as an 8th grader, and now to hear the piece we're about to hear and to see your growth has been pretty remarkable, Kyle. So you've done 5 pieces that have been premiered here on this stage. What are your takeaways, Kyle, from hearing 5 of your pieces performed for an audience like this?
It's kind of just like what you talked about of how much room there is to grow, like always, because I remember the very first year that I wrote a piece, I was like, oh, this piece is so good, I really like this. And then the next year, I looked back on that piece and I was like, it was all right, but this piece is really good. And every year it's just gotten so much better, and there's always so much more to learn and so much more to improve on. And that's one of the things I really like about composing.
One of the stories I tell my students on one of the first days of Composers Guild is how composing is kind of like building Legos. And anybody can just go up to a Lego box and start putting things together, but only someone like you, Kyle, who's taken the time to study the craft is going to be able to make something that looks like the Millennium Falcon, or something that resembles something that somebody else might recognize. And so I know you are planning to go on in composing after your time here at MHS. Where do you kind of see yourself, Kyle, as a composer, maybe 5, 10, or even 15 years from now? Where do you think this journey is going to take you?
I really have no idea. I'm excited to find out, though. I would be open to writing for really anything, whether it be movies, video games, orchestras, bands, even like producing for hip-hop or pop artists would be pretty cool. And maybe I'll come back in a few years and write for In Their Own Right again.
That would be a treat. I did not expect it when Kyle dropped a hip hop single on my desk earlier this year. That was a treat. So Kyle, my last question to you before we hear your piece is, you've had this experience, going into college composition programs where you've been able to have an experience where you've interacted with professionals, you've had the chance to talk about your music to performers. Basically, how do you think this experience of being in Composers Guild will help you at the next level? And do you think maybe, what do you think you'll say to friends who haven't had an experience like yours?
I think I've really learned a lot from Composers Guild. This is something you cannot experience anywhere else. Getting to work with performers at this level and having your own music played is something that really like made me love composing even more. So yeah, I think it's an awesome opportunity and it's really fun, so yeah.
Well, I think you are all in for a treat as we're about to hear Kyle's final piece. Sadly, you are a senior. I can't talk you into one more year. You don't want to go for 6 next year?
Maybe.
We'll see. So we'll now enjoy Kyle's piece, When One Door Closes. Then we'll hear a piece by Allison and by Joey, and then we'll close the concert with a special piece. So I hope you enjoy the next set of pieces. Thanks, Kyle. All right, well, we have one more piece to perform for you tonight, but before we do that, we're going to, since it is, again, our 10th anniversary, we decided we're going to take a stroll down memory lane. I was going to reach out to one of our esteemed Composers Guild alumni, and I didn't have to reach very far, and I didn't have to think very long to know that I wanted Lauren Schaff to come back, not only visit us with a conversation, but also to write a piece, which she so graciously has. So please welcome to the floral design interview stage, Lauren Schaff. And Lauren, you might be the only person who knows why this poster is behind me. Now, some of you, if you have good eyes, you'll notice that this poster is not for tonight. It's actually for Thursday, May 15th, which is not tonight. This was one of the first posters that we made for In Their Own Rights when we started doing these. Do you remember those productions when we did it with the theater?
Yeah, I do remember the plays. I remember some were student-led, some were student-written, and I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah, so for several In Their Own Rights, we would combine with the drama department, and it was really fun. So this was the only poster I think I've ever made for In Their Own Right, so I figured I had to show it for this show. Lauren, similar question to Kyle. How did you get started writing music, and then how did you end up joining Composers Guild while you're at MHS?
Yeah, so I actually started being interested in composing when I was really little. I was about in 3rd grade, and my elementary school music teacher showed me a piece by Emily Bear, who at the time was around like 6 or 7, and I was like, oh my gosh, this little girl can compose. I want to do that too, because like I had never seen representation like that. I'd only thought, oh, well, composers were like from history, like they were all like men, and I thought, wow, I didn't know that girls could compose. So I started being interested in composing shortly after that. And in middle school, I started experimenting with the piano and improvising and thinking I can come up with some melodies, but it was kind of hard for me to put them together and create like a cohesive piece. So when I found out in high school we had a Composers Guild, I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. I want to join this so I can really hone in on my craft and learn how to really make a piece out of these melodies I was coming up with.
That's awesome. We really try to combat the stereotype that to compose you have to be dead. That's a very common stereotype, so we try to tackle that in Composers Guild. Lauren, what would you say the impact was of joining Composers Guild? Because I know you've not only composed pieces, you've also gone on to, you've made your own EP, you do a lot of like popular music. How has learning how to compose impacted you just as an overall musician, would you say?
Yeah, so composing really unlocked a lot of doors for me. In terms of just like self-expression, composing in high school was really a good outlet for me to tell my stories and express my emotions, and it kind of unlocked for me like the world of music therapy because I ended up going to college for music therapy, and I found I really made a connection with music, and I felt it really helped me connect with myself, and it brought me closer to a lot of other people too. And I kind of wanted to bring that gift to other people, so I went into music therapy. But in terms of like making music itself and songwriting, getting taught like the basic music theory behind chord progressions and kind of what you were talking about with the Legos, like putting different parts of a song together, that really gave me the foundation to learning how to write songs and compose myself, like compose pieces in college too. So I thought that was a really amazing opportunity I got to have.
When Lauren sent me her EP and I listened to it, even if I had not personally known the songwriter, I would have been incredibly impressed with the songs you wrote. Where could people find the work you've done, Lauren?
Yeah, so I actually release music under the name Lillian Bloom, and it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's on pretty much every streaming platform, but yeah, definitely check it out.
It's well worth the listen. So Lauren, I love that you told the story of how you learned there was a composer that was younger than you that was doing this, and that it kind of inspired you. There may be just somebody out here, a student, maybe not a student, who might be listening to this and just thinking like, oh, well, that's not for me, I could never do that. Like, what would you say to someone who's maybe kind of though inspired to think, oh, maybe that is something I could do, compose music?
Yeah, so if you want to compose music, but you're not sure really where to start, I can say personally getting started was the hardest part for me. And once I got started, it really got the ball rolling. And just getting started with something new is really scary, but it's really worth it because you end up learning how to make so many beautiful things. And I'd say Composers Guild is an amazing place to start because you're surrounded by a very supportive community of people who will lift you up and give you feedback on your work, and it's led by a really wonderful teacher, so I definitely recommend checking it out if you're kind of on the fence.
And I did not pay you to say that, correct?
No.
That was not. So, Lauren, we're about to hear a piece that you wrote specifically for this recital, and you confessed that you have not composed a piece in a while. So what was it like for you going back to the composer's table after being kind of a songwriter, and what are you excited for the audience to listen to tonight?
Yeah, so my piece tonight is called Epilogue, and it's kind of a nod to when I first went to college. I wanted to go into film composition, and I really wanted to make something that kind of reflected that part of me, but also just to show what can happen beyond Composers Guild and beyond high school. So yeah, I hadn't composed really a piece like this since high school, which was 5 years ago, oh my goodness. But yeah, and then my first year of college, I composed a choral piece and a cello trio, but since then, it's mostly been songwriting, and so it's been really interesting getting back into composing. There's been a lot of things that I forgot were really hard and that I needed to work through, like the cello bowings and just what's even possible for piano. So just a lot of things I need to go back and kind of reteach myself. But yeah, it's been really amazing. I'm excited for everyone to hear my piece, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Well, we're excited to hear it. After Lauren's piece, I'll come back up and give some just closing announcements and remarks. But we're very excited to conclude our 10th anniversary recital with Epilogue by Lauren Schaff. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you so much, Dr. Pelusi. Really, we could have had an entire evening of just solo repertoire by all of these amazing artists, so that they all came together to play the works of high school students. I mean, that's just remarkable that they are giving their time and their incredible talents. Let's give them one more round of applause. One of the things, after our rehearsal today, I conferred with all of our performers, and we do like to give out a Best of Show certificate. You think after 10 years I would have come up with like an impressive trophy or something, but it's still just a piece of copy paper. So, an extremely coveted prize, I'm sure. But for 2023, in their own right, we would like to give Best of Show to Kyle Gillis. At this time, I would actually like to invite all of our composers. If you saw it again in the lobby, each of them has a table with their score and a little description of their piece. I'm going to dismiss them to go out and stand by their tables, and then we're going to dismiss you all out to the reception. We encourage you all to, again, have some coffee. There is decaf. Grab a cookie and walk around and talk to these young, amazing composers, because what they did tonight took a lot of bravery to put their work out into the world, and I think we definitely were all better off for it. So let's give them one more round of applause as they head out to their tables. Composers, you can head on out. And there'll be plenty of opportunities for photo ops and whatnot out there. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our 10th anniversary show. We hope you will come to our 11th anniversary show next year. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.